Hey, what's going on, dudes? It's the Dr. Blue, and today I'm here with Rooflemonger. You might know him from all of his extraordinary guides in both Dragon Ball FighterZ, MK11, and beyond. I'm here to chat about content creation and game theory, specifically fighting game theory. So, without further ado, Rooflemonger, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, how are you enjoying this coronacation we have going on?
To be brutally honest, it's basically the same as it ever was for me.
Yeah.
I work from home, obviously. I live in a very, very, very small town. And except for walking the dog, I'm basically a shut-in. So honestly, it's about same old for me.
Yeah, I've actually found it's the exact same thing. I live in a condominium, and we recently found out someone here has COVID-19, and the only reason I would ever, leave the house is to walk him, and so he's staying with his in-laws right now. So I'm just inside. I'm just grinding in the lab.
You gotta do what you gotta do. It's not been too different for me.
Now, I heard that you wanted to, I know that you were kind of pumped to watch WrestleMania. I had no idea how they were going to do that. Especially, it's not a crowd. It's just people in a gymnasium. What's going on with that side of things?
Okay, well, to preface this, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. My earliest memory in life is Hulk Hogan.
Oh, nice.
And this is probably going to be the worst WrestleMania ever by a large margin for many factors. Like, to the point where I don't even know if I'm going to bother watching. And this would be the first WrestleMania I would not have watched.
Yeah, I actually grew up on wrestling as well. We didn't have cable in like my little town in South Carolina, so the only thing I had, I believe my first wrestling match was Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle.
Oh, yeah, Rey versus Kurt, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great storyline, and then I was obsessed from then on out. In fact, I would probably attribute that to my future liking of fighting games down the line. Do you... Two-sided question. Do you think your love of wrestling has played into your love of fighting games, and why is there not a competitive WWE game?
Me growing up, like, I'm a child of the 80s. I'm older than the average here in the FGC, I think. I'm on the wrong side of 30, right?
Right.
But yeah, growing up on wrestling and martial art movies specifically, like, how could I not get into fighting games? Like, it's all about, crazy action and colorful characters, which is exactly what fighting games are. So, like, I feel most people who grew up as wrestling fans or watching martial arts movies, especially in my era, like, there's a reason why, like, hey, what's the biggest game in the world right now? Fortnite, right? You dial it back a few years, it would have been, like, League of Legends, right? In the 90s, it was Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. Those were the biggest games on the planet. And, like, it's basically because of the generational upbringing.
Well, speaking of Mortal Kombat, I was also raised on those movies, and I watched both the first one and the second one. Of course, I was too young to realize that, like, they were a product of their time, but I really, really loved them.
Hey, that first MK movie is still a good movie, in my opinion.
It's still a good movie. It's still really good. It's really good. Yeah, so do you think that people still equate Mortal Kombat with nostalgia, or is there actually still a thriving new scene for that game?
Oh, well, Mortal Kombat 11 is the biggest selling game this year that's not Call of Duty. So that's not just nostalgia. The numbers back it up, right? But that said, I guess I don't know how to phrase this, but it's definitely not nostalgia, because Mortal Kombat remains a force. Like, even during the quote-unquote dark ages of the FGC, right? Late 90s, when arcades were starting to go down, I know people love talking up Third Strike and all that, but Street Fighter 3 initially was very poorly received. Very, very poorly received. And that also led kind of downfall. And there's only two games that really held the torch at the time, Soul Calibur 1 and 2, and each Mortal Kombat, even though no one cared, quote-unquote, about fighting games during that time, each Mortal Kombat still sold like a million bajillion copies.
It's kind of one of the first games that I remember playing. In fact, I think that every time they put out a new game, there is a new entire generation of kids who are introduced to it the first time. So when I asked that, it was definitely a leading question, because anyone that watches your channel knows that you have put so much time into building up that game in particular. But what they might not know is that it's not really good for business. Like, the content creation end of Mortal Kombat is a scene on unto itself with its own rules. So who else better to talk about it? Can you give us like an inside look what it's like making content for that game?
All right. Well, to preface first too, it's not as bad as it used to be on the demonetization front. It's better than it was. YouTube finally, the algorithm has changed. And if you know anything about YouTube, the algorithm is your lord, right?
Right.
But say for like the first 6 months or so of the game, right? It's basically, as someone, YouTube is my primary source of income now, right? So like it's a big deal to me. And every video I make, doesn't matter if it's like a 2-minute quick thing or like, one of my 50-minute guides, I'd have to flip a coin. Okay, does this make me even 1 cent?
Yeah.
I could put in like 10 hours into a video and like get literally nothing out of it.
No, because what people don't know is like those guides, like those guides that you make, especially where you compare and contrast moves that were pre and post patch, those can be entire day long affairs. Like,
especially when big patches, like I just don't sleep. Like I just go over 24 hours. I'll start as soon as the patch goes live. Say it's this is an example. Say it could be like 3 p.m, patch goes live, right? And I'll have the video up at 8 a.m. and that's just been constant work from that point, right?
Yeah.
No sleep. I might go not too far from where I live, about 10-minute walk. There's like it's a place that serves all day breakfast. And I'll go there, nice. Right? And that's my meal in between. But then it's just work, don't sleep till it's done.
God, and that's like, some people would say, okay, that's overkill. But when it comes to doing the YouTube grind, if you're not first, it really feels like you're last. Like if you're not. God, yeah. I
know you're up and coming yourself, right? And a big part of that kind of stuff is, if you're not first, you're last. Like when it comes to anything timely, be it like a news item or like a patch or whatever, the fact that you getting out there as quick as you can with as much as you can is live or die, straight up.
Yes, it is. And it's fun too. Like it's almost like to steal a term from the fighting game community, like it's almost like there's a meta around how to grow your own channel in the FGC, because we aren't Fortnite or League of Legends. And coming into it is very niche, but it's also very kind. When I first started to make my own guides with the Rhythmic Theory, you were one of the first people to tweet it out. And I'm like, oh my god, someone with the size of Rooflemonger, who I actually learned the game from, is giving my guide the time of day. And I've never seen that. Like in the music scene, I was a touring musician for the longest time before I went to college. And people don't help out people, man. But it's completely different in, I don't know if it's YouTube culture or if it's just fighting game culture, but you're one of the people who are helping build up the scene. Is that always a mentality you've had? Like you don't really view people as competition. It's more like we're in this together. Like where did that come from?
Well, for me, I might come from a unique place on that. Like, yes, absolutely. I'm just trying to help people out, right? Anyone, if you give me something you think is cool, it's like, hey, can you tweet out, give it some visibility? I'll try my best, I'm still not like big, like some people are, but I try my best. Like for me, like I've loved fighting games my whole life, right? Like literally, ever since Street Fighter 2 hit the arcades, I was obsessed with it. And then of course Mortal Kombat, Virtua Fighter, also very dear to me. But I grew up in the middle of nowhere. And I still live in the middle of nowhere, so there's no tournaments, there's no locals, there's no scene. It's just me. That's it. So giving back to the community on the internet as best as I can. This is my contribution because I can't make this kind of stuff. I can't appear in tournaments and all that. Like, that's just how it is for me.
Yeah. So it's not just the ingrained Canadian kindness. That's just part of what you do.
Oh, no, I was born and raised in Quebec, dude. There's no ingrained Canadian kindness there. Let me tell you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So I've only been to one place in Canada, and it was Montreal. Gorgeous. But I believe...
Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a little Quebecer talk here, but like Montreal's like fake Quebec.
Okay. Okay.
Montreal is like the poster they put up for the tourists, and you tear it down and you get to see what Quebec's really like. It's not the same thing.
Okay. So in that side, is that the side of Canada that speaks a little bit of French? Like, is that scene?
Yeah, Quebec is where the bulk of the French language in Canada is.
Oh, nice. Do you know any?
Oh, God, this is going to be a whole thing. Okay, so I was born and raised in Quebec, right? I am what you call an Anglo, like Anglophone English. My family is a primarily English-speaking family. And we grew up, specifically late 80s, early 90s. There's a lot of butting heads with the language stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go too much into it. If you're Canadian or you're Quebecois, you know how it was. Like, it was not good. And then compound that with all like the biker wars and all that, it wasn't the best time.
Whoa, I feel like there's an entire subsect of Canadian culture that, like, as a Southern American, like, the biker wars, I feel like that could be its own Netflix special, man. Like,
I'm pretty sure there has been multiple TV shows made about the biker issues in Quebec during the 90s and 80s.
Oh, man. Well, to bring this back to the FGC, and particularly Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is the bulk of the audience that I've built, Season 3 has brought an entirely brand new feeling to this game. Whether it's C-Assist, whether it's the death of GT Goku, or whether it's something that
I think he's still very much alive. He's just...
Yeah.
It's one of those deals. How many times have they
good.
nerfed Kid Buu, right? They've nerfed Kid Buu like, what, 5-6 consecutive times? He's still top tier.
I mean, it's the truth. The one thing I'd like to ask your opinion on, and it's a definitive product of our time with the coronavirus shutting down the FGC. And I know you've done a good few videos on this, so without getting demonetized, without that word popping up in the algorithm.
Just don't tag it. Just don't tag it.
I promise you I've learned my lesson. I will go. Is this the perfect time for people to get into content creation for Dragon Ball FighterZ for the FGC because there's no definitive meta surrounding the tournament play?
Oh, well, hey, it's always a good time. Like, once again, you said it yourself, we're not Fortnite, we're not League of Legends, MOBAs, like, we're a much smaller community overall, right? And, like, big-time content creation is rare in the FGC. Like, I could probably hit Google, hit YouTube, and just type in any random string of words, and I could find, like, probably very literally 1,000 different, like, Fortnite YouTubers, right?
Yeah.
And the FGC, like, there's a couple of us that we all cover our own subsect of games. Like, I'm probably a little bit different than most, and I cover a much wider variety than the average person. Like, right now, obviously, I focus on Dragon Ball, but, I cover MK, I'll cover Guilty Gear when it's out, I'll cover King of Fighters 15, I've covered Street Fighter in the past, KOF 14, like, all that kind of stuff. But, like, yeah, okay, here's our Dragon Ball guy, here's the Street Fighter guy, like Vesper Arcade, for example, right? But, yeah, there's not many out there. And there's a lot more that can be done, too, like, oh my lord, I'm forgetting the gentleman that brought it up, and it's going to bug me. But there's a lot of room to grow in content creation for the FGC. Like, there's a lot of people out there. That's probably the more common thing is like, hey, here's clips of my stream. Like, oh, hey, I played the game. That's cool. Or hey, here's VODs of pro players playing. Right? That's cool. But, like, more like, hey, more guides. Like, hey, why don't we make a guy who makes a comedy channel about the FGC? More memes, more funny stuff. That's very rare, right? Like, there's a lot of untested ground to be brought up on.
Yeah, when I decided to get into the YouTube grind, I sat down and I looked at my stuff and I'm like, okay, where is the niche? And it takes people a long time to find their niche, because the way that YouTube works is the more niche you are, the better. Because if you cast a wide net, you're just not. It's just not gonna happen. What is the one advice you would give to anyone out there that's listening, if they want to specialize in the FGC? What is it missing? What can they capitalize on?
That's a very solid question. The biggest thing I would say is whatever you truly feel the most about, that's what you should be focusing on, even if it is somewhat treaded before, to be sure. Because if you cast too wide of a net, like I said, you're talking about like casting your focus, right? If you cast too wide of a net, then it's just not going to stick. For me, like, I've always had a predilection towards, guide making. You can find plenty of guides on my channel from like way before. Oh, there's a big motorcycle going by. Way before most people knew who I was, right? Like, you can find like Injustice 1 stuff and all that kind of stuff. I was still making the guides well before I ever made any kind of name for myself. Like, okay, and on that exact note here, so my channel, quote unquote, started as in I like got more than like 150 subscribers. When once again I was going for the educational style of content I usually make, and I was playing For Honor, like not a proper fighting game, right? But I'm like, hey, I'm a lifelong fighting game player, and I bet this game, which has a lot of concepts similar to fighting games, even though I wouldn't call For Honor strictly a fighting game. Like, how about I make educational videos with the fighting game mindset for this game, right?
And how'd it go?
And it went really well. Like, I got a lot of videos. I found out a lot of broken tech that ruined the game for a while. I introduced a whole new generation of players to the concept of option selects, because For Honor was rotten with option selects and nobody really knew, right? Until I started bringing that up. And then I'm like, oh, okay, hey, this stuff's working a bit. And I think, oh God, what was it? I think like Tekken 7 or something was coming out at that point. Like, okay, let's try Tekken 7, then move on to Injustice 2 and like all that kind of stuff.
So, just to do a little timeline here, how long have you been making videos for?
Well, making videos consistently started around For Honor, because like I might like, oh, here's like a Birdie combo guide or Chun-Li combo guide in Street Fighter 5 or something, and then I would make another video for another month. Like, consistently making videos started with For Honor.
You consistently have a grind now.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. You consistently have a grind now. Like, you post almost every day.
I don't want to, but I do. Yeah, it's hard sometimes, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
like,
it is.
Sometimes I am jealous of the people who their content style is like, oh, here's the clip of my stream, right? Because I find that's a lot easier, honestly.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. But I also know that you are Twitch streaming right now. Have you found your YouTube audience transfers pretty easily to that platform?
Not one-to-one. I'm actually been kind of a bum lately on Twitch. A combination of, like, I used to be a very reliable streamer for like almost 2 years straight. And then I had an extended visit with my family in Quebec, so I couldn't stream. And when I came back, I got very, like, top 3 in my life sick for like a month plus.
Oh, yeah.
So I couldn't stream then
either.
either.
That was recently.
Yeah. And then it just kind of ruined the whole flow. But I'm trying to slowly get back to stream. But yeah, as for YouTube stream, it's not, my audience on YouTube is obviously bigger, right? But you know, FGC streaming as well, if it's not a tournament, it's hard. Like, even like tippity top players like struggle to get like 300-400 viewers, right?
Yeah,
and like, if I'm playing Dragon Ball, usually I can get anywhere from like 150 to 300, and that puts me on the bigger end of things. But for Twitch as a whole, 150 to 300 is like nothing, right? So it's really weird. But the audience, I think, follows a bit, as long as you let them know what's going on, right? If you just go live on Twitch and don't tell anybody, it don't help you, right? But it carries over a little bit, I think.
Well, to round this whole thing out, I just want to say when about 2 years before I started doing the YouTube grind, I was a drum instructor for 4 years total. And it got to the point where I was teaching people every day, like 8-year-olds to 42-year-olds, teaching them the same thing, to the point where I couldn't even listen to music. I was like, this is it. I need a break. And so, of course, I would only watch a few YouTubers. You were completely one of them. I would look forward to the daily upload. But it has me thinking, the further I get into this, do you still live, eat, and breathe fighting games, or do you need a break every now and then?
Breaks are nice. Like, here's the thing. This is what helped me. Because I am an old fogey compared to some of the other people here, right? I lived, breathed fighting games from, God, how old would I have been in 1992 or whatever when Street Fighter 2 came out? But from that point to now, right? So I was already so immersed into it well before I ever started doing YouTube. That said, there are some days, like, especially with Season 3 coming out, like when I was saying I haven't streamed too much lately, if I spend like 10 hours a day working on a video and I'm in training mode, I'm in the lab and all that, and when it's all finally said and done for the day, like, the last thing I want to do is boot up the game again, right?
Right.
So that can be an issue sometimes. But yeah, my love of fighting games has never diminished. Like, sometimes I do want a break, or I'll just start like watch some movies or play some other games. Like, I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Remake, for example. Probably put a lot of time into that. But yeah, there can be points where like it's a little overwhelming, but that's just any job, I guess, right? Like, that's just how it is. Like, I've worked so many other jobs in my past. Like, I've been a convenience store guy. I've been emergency services, fire, medical, police. I've been a computer repairman, right? Like, it's the same thing. And some familiarity sometimes can, just breed a little bit much, like, just want to get away from it for a minute,
Yeah, no, it is the truth. And that's why I would like to say to anyone out there that's listening, if you are going to start this grind and you're going to try to get into this, what he just said is the perfect thing. I'd like to add a tiny thing. If you can find one new thing about your content that you love every day. Like whether it's, oh, I'm really going to make this thumbnail super cool, or I'm going to make a funny intro. Keep it fresh every time, and you'll probably last as long as Rooflemonger has, and he's built a pretty good audience. He's built a pretty loyal following, and it's been really cool to see. So I guess this is as good a time of any to close this off. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go?
Well, then on the YouTube front specifically, I would say if you're looking to do this specifically to get paid, don't.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
It took me like, once I started doing seriously, like it took me like 6 months to make my first $100.
Yeah.
And, you know, it fluctuates month to month, but I make maybe a little bit more than minimum wage, right? I'm one of the larger FGC channels, and I don't make too much money. Like, and now with the whole COVID thing, right? Ad rates have plummeted. And it's a good thing I saved my money. Let's put it that way. Cause
is that what's going on? The ad rates are going down. I'm like, okay, I'm earning this. I feel like I'm making this. Oh, okay. There's a little bit behind the scenes. I didn't even think to look into ad rates during COVID. Yeah, because it's been dropping a little bit.
Oh, just a little more than a little bit for me. I'm making about as much as I did back in the Marvel Infinite days right now.
Lovely.
But you know what? That's fine. Like I said, I save my money. That doesn't stop my content flow because I love fighting games. I want to keep up with this stuff, you know? But yeah, if you're looking to be like a YouTuber or a Twitch guy and you want to get paid, pick up a MOBA or FPS because fighting games ain't it.
Yeah, no, just do this for potentially the love of it and the community. It's been awesome. It's how it should be. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close it off here, guys. I would like to thank Rooflemonger. If you haven't checked out his channel, please do. Solid dude. Breaks things down for the layman, for the beginner. It's how I got my start in fighting games, and it's been a privilege to have this man on the channel. Rooflemonger, thank you so much. Come back anytime.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, of course. For now, like, share, and subscribe for more content like this, and I've been the Dr. Blue. You are incredible. I'll see you in the next video.